Goddess Kari. His armor shook along with his voice. Wraith, you mustn't. And why is that, Crovidor? Wraith laughed, making the grip tighter. You can't even do anything to help her. She deserves this. That is not a way to fight. Jake's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Taking a hostage is simply disgraceful. If only I could hear that again. Wraith took his sword and held it up to Kari's stomach. Say bye-bye. He slashed her enough to keep her alive and threw her to the side. Jake instantly darted towards Wraith, keeping his sword powered up. Though Wraith could not react due to how fast he was going and only managed to see Jake again as he was impaled in the chest by his sword. Wraith's eyes and mouth slowly leaked black blood, and he looked down at him. We'll meet again. Wraith's voice shrunk and trailed off. His body and armor slowly disappeared like dust in the wind. Jake felt his sword be free from the body that was not there anymore. But he dropped it and ran over to Kari, who was still bleeding out. He quickly took off his armor and ripped his clothes under, creating a bandage for the gushing wound. Kari was unconscious from the blood loss, not feeling anything until Jake took her armor off, then cutting the cloth around. Kari's eyes barely opened and noticed Jake above her. Jake. Kari's voice was barely able to be heard. Jake wrapped around the makeshift bandage. Please do not speak. You need to avoid anything that causes more pain. The knight was seen far behind Jake, standing there in shock. Though he quickly turned to look behind him, seeing a few more dark knights running toward them. It was meters away, but they were still a danger to both Kari and Jake. Shaking off the fear that was from Wraith, he picked up his sword again, mumbling to generate more power. Kari could barely feel the pain in her stomach and noticed Jake's face, seeing the worry and fear. She teared up, knowing how much pain he was going through. Jake. Kari spoke slightly louder. Please, Kari, save it for later. Jake finished up with tightening the bandage. I love you too. Kari's voice trailed off as she became unconscious again. Kari? Jake watched her eyelids slowly close. Kari. No. Jake checked for a pulse and was at little ease, barely feeling anything. He knew she was still alive, but her life was in danger. Getting his armor back on and sword in place, he looked around his surroundings. Jake heard the knight fighting far behind him and quickly picked Kari up, searching for someone to take her somewhere safe. There was Julius, but she was busy fighting off the other hundreds of dark shadows with Jolin. The others that were Talma and the twins were unfamiliar to Jake, but out of the rest, they were the only few near Kari when the war began. He decided to slightly run to them, seeing that the twins, rather than Talma, were not doing much other than talking with themselves. They noticed Jake coming toward them and immediately rushed over, seeing Kari almost limp in his arms. There was no time to waste on her. So Klein went to the side and opened his hand, creating a portal. You must go. Leave this place and keep Kari safe. For us. Klein lightly pushed Jake into the portal. We will see you again in the future, but not soon. Clint sobbed and waved goodbye as Jake nodded and went into the portal. It was slightly distorted, but they were back in the glimmering forest, as the evening was just then showing an orange-lit sky. Readjusting his grip holding Kari, Jake walked into a random direction. Listening to the sounds of nature, he connected with spirits lingering around, guiding him. He barely coordinated his way, but the spirits brought Jake to Kari's home. Seeing the opening of the trees, the familiar house came into view, but this time Jolin was not present. Jake barely managed to open the front door while still holding Kari. Walking inside, he looked for some place to lay her down. He chose the couch in another room. He undid the bandage on Kari and rummaged through his pocket, taking out a pouch. He took a sparkling green cream from inside and spread it across Kari's stomach. Gently, he made sure that it was mostly around the wound and barely inside. A few faint sounds came from Kari as she began to feel the pain. Jake looked around for anything that could act as a proper bandage and found an herbal drawer with everything needed. He took a long bandage and came back to Kari, fully wrapping it around her stomach. Jake could finally slack his body, knowing that Kari was going to survive. She was asleep and her face looked much more relaxed compared to before. Looking at her, he noticed some light drips of sweat and gently pat them down with a handkerchief from his pocket. He then realized that her forehead was burning up after feeling it. Jake had to leave Kari alone for a while in order to reduce it, but he hesitated. There were then light knocks coming from the door, and he quickly turned around. Walking slowly, he peeked out a window nearby and saw a short old man. It seemed to be the old shopkeeper, and he waited with a large bag on his back. Jake quickly opened the door for him, guiding him inside. Please, you need to help. Jake walked toward the other room. Kari is here, and her temperature is boiling. Ah, yes. I was informed by Julius. Take this and fetch some water. The old shopkeeper took out a bucket from the bag. There is a stream not too far west from here. I will keep watch on Kari for you. Thank you. Jake smiled and glanced at Kari before leaving. He took the bucket and ran as fast as he could. Down the side of the forest and even past a swamp. He trusted in the old man's words. He found the stream and checked the water. It was clear and cool. Placing the bucket inside, he gathered enough and tried his best to make his way straight back in time. Passing each viewpoint once more, he made it to the house. Inside, he placed the bucket down near Kari and began to drench a piece of cloth for her forehead. In the meantime, he sat with the old man and chatted together. End of section 17.